Pacing is sometimes thought of as a strategy or a set of strategies, but you could also think of it as a way of life or a lifestyle. From that perspective, one way of thinking about pacing is to view it as involving the replacement of one set of habits and ways of living with another set, one more appropriate for life with CFS or fibro. When we think of habits, we often think of things we do, but it also applies to our thoughts. That is, our habitual ways of thinking. I'd like to deal with both in this video, beginning with behavior. What's wonderful about habits, in my view, is that they're ingrained and automatic. I viewed habits as powerful allies in my efforts to recover from CFS. I believed that if I could create habits that supported my recovery, my progress would get an automatic boost. Probably the most important habit change for me was the use of planned rest, which for me took the form of 2 15-minute scheduled rests each day. When I first heard of the idea of scheduled rest, I resisted it. I couldn't understand why I would lie down voluntarily if I wasn't experiencing increased symptoms, and I thought of resting as a way of giving in to the illness, so that rest meant victory for CFS. But I decided to give planned rest a try, initially with a break in the mid-afternoon. I was surprised at the results. Even that short rest seemed to help, reducing my symptoms, increasing my stamina, and making my life more stable. After a while, I added a morning rest as well. Over time, I came to believe that my scheduled rest was the most important thing I did to support my recovery. And once the 2 rests were in place as habits, they were just a part of my life. I didn't have to put any more energy into them, but I reaped the benefits and could go on to implement more ideas. Changing habitual thoughts is related to changing habitual behaviors. Let me explain by using an example of someone in our self-help program who changed how she handles household chores. When she was healthy, her attitude was, "I work until the task is done." When she got fibromyalgia, she told us, she found that approach made her symptoms worse. Over time, she replaced her previous approach with the thought of, "I stop when I'm tired." The new thought has led to new habits, such as taking rest breaks while cleaning or cooking. The new habits have given her a sense of control. Habit change begins with awareness. That's step 1 here. For this woman, awareness meant the recognition that, with fibromyalgia in her life, her old attitude toward household tasks led not to a sense of accomplishment, but rather to intensified symptoms, forced rest, and a sense of helplessness. At this stage, the goal is not habit change, but rather awareness of the consequences of continuing old habits. For me, with planned rest, as I mentioned earlier, the idea of living my life in response to symptoms was replaced, or at least I considered the option that using rest would give me a sense of control. So the awareness was the contrast between a life lived in a way that felt out of control to the possibility of regaining control. The second step of habit change is the creation of an alternative behavior. That's what I labeled plan for new behavior there. For the woman I mentioned, the alternative was to stop when tired. The key to success in this step is to plan the response ahead of time, so that when a situation arises, you can do something different than in the past. One way to change behavior is to create a set of personal rules. Rules describe what you will do in a given situation. For example, you might establish rules for how long you stay on the computer, how much exercise you do, how far you drive, when you go to bed at night, when and how long you rest during the day, how much media exposure you have, and how long you spend in social situations. In the example that I gave of me and rest, the rule was to take a 15-minute rest in the late morning and another one in mid-afternoon. Personal rules have an if-then structure. For example, if I've been on the computer for 20 minutes, it's time to take a break. If it's 11 a.m., then it's time for my morning rest. If it's 9 p.m., then it's time to start getting ready for bed. Rules are planned responses which you use as a substitute for old habitual behaviors. Over time, the new behavior becomes a habit. The third aspect of habit change focuses on thoughts and involves rewriting our mental scripts. I've labeled this new thoughts. Continuing with the example of the woman in our program, the thought, "I've got to finish this job," would be replaced by thoughts such as, "If I continue, I'll be forced to spend an hour in bed," or "I'm feeling tired, so I'm going to take a break now." The thoughts you create to counteract the old habit remind you of the consequences of continuing your old ways, that is, increased symptoms, or reinforce the alternative, a sense of control. Part of changing scripts is reframing our view of ourselves to support positive behaviors. For example, a second person in our program, like me, has changed her view of taking rest breaks. She told me that she used to tell herself she was weak for lying down during the day. Now when she rests, her self-talk is, "I'm helping myself to be healthy. I'm saving energy to spend time with my husband or to babysit my grandchildren." The fourth part of habit change is support. This means having people around who understand our situation and will support our efforts to change. Getting support may require that we educate the people in our lives about CFS and FM, and also we can get support from other people with CFS and fibro, as well as from others such as counselors. So to summarize, when you think about pacing, think about making habits your ally.